Shout out to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, the online learning community for creatives. The Fujifilm X-E4 is an ambitious and bold camera in that it really looks to provide new users with a ton of value while potentially frustrating an existing user base. In this video, I'll go over what it was like to use an X-E4 for the better part of a month across multiple productions, highlight how this camera competes with some other Fujifilm offerings, and wrap up with if this camera is a worthwhile investment or not.
But God might be on vacation, and the promised land ain't never promised. My baby telling me to be patient, but the devil always working overnight, my darling.
Before I begin, I just want to quickly mention that most of you watching may not be subscribed, and your support goes a long way in growing this channel, reaching new people, and producing more great content. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button, because I know you'll enjoy some of the content that I have planned in the coming months. Now let's jump into what this camera brings to the table. As I mentioned in my first impressions, you get a 4th generation sensor and processor from Fujifilm that gives you a 26 megapixel X-trans array, and that means you get really good low light performance and a more randomized noise pattern that leads to very unique images. I've used this sensor along with Fuji's film simulations to create some of my best work and even some award winners. Quite simply, the photography guts of this camera are top notch. Along with great images, the X-E4 is quite a capable video capture tool. Internally, you can capture 4K footage up to 30p, 8-bit 420, use the micro HDMI to connect an external recorder, and you jump to a 10-bit 422 image, which is very robust for a camera that's arguably targeting beginners. Oh, and if you need some slow motion footage, the X-E4 can capture at 240 frames per second at full HD. Given that Fujifilm offers plenty of frame rate options, this camera can be a fantastic video tool. However, the overall design makes this a bit more catered toward image creators. In fact, this may not be a great option at all if you plan on doing a good amount of video on the go, and the reasons are quite simple. The Fujifilm X-E4 employs an even more minimal design from its predecessor in that you no longer have a rear command dial, a directional pad, and a focus mode switch. These omissions make for a product that is less intimidating for new users that are coming over to Fujifilm, but challenging for those that were hoping to upgrade to this camera as their primary solution from an X-E2 or an X-E3. Here's the thing, and I want to be clear here, while these decisions may not be in line with what professionals like myself would value, it doesn't mean that this is necessarily a mistake. There is a lengthening happening in Fujifilm's lineup where cameras are becoming more segmented and users have more options. This can be intimidating if you're coming in, but more importantly, you're just seeing a ton of competitive options for those that are looking to get into this ecosystem in the first place. This is a camera that seems to be designed specifically for that, for image creators looking to get into Fujifilm. And let's be honest, what a camera to get into. Along with a strong suite of features that I mentioned earlier, you get plenty of ports, a tilting display that's great if you really want to do selfies or vlogging on the go, and 460 shots per charge in a body that's well under 400 grams. This is a camera that'll entice users to shoot and keep shooting. On the topic of size, it is a small camera, and for my hands, it felt quite awkward at times. I threw on the official grip and thumb rest and never looked back. While these may not be a must-have accessory for some, if you find yourself quite adept at opening a cold jar of pickles, you probably should add these to your cart at checkout. While shooting, I'd alternate between the viewfinder and the LCD, but found that the viewfinder was just a bit challenging for me. Given the resolution hasn't improved here and the entry point is a bit on the small side, I had to change how I shot. I'd rely on the back LCD for composition and capture for most of my work, even though it would make some fighting of the muscle memory here. That being said, when I stopped trying to force my way of shooting on this camera and just allowed myself to work with what it provides, it led to a more enjoyable experience. And to be honest, it made me a little excited for those that are jumping into Fujifilm with this camera. Now, that's some high praise, but there are some clear ways that this product can be improved. Before I get to that, let's go to that scheduled ad read here. Now listen, before we continue, I have to take a moment to thank Skillshare, the sponsor of this video, and you would have heard them by now. I've been talking about them for a little while. They are an online community for learning. Yes, community, because when you join, it's not like a passive experience. You're actually joining a ton of other people as they look to further their creative journey. You'll find a ton of classes that offer a wide range of content, of talents, of skills that you can learn, whether you are a beginner or an expert. There's a ton of value there. I recently signed up for the class of productivity from Thomas Frank, and it was great to see how people that have built a huge community, how they stay productive, how they get things done. And this is something that you just don't see from a lot of other outlets. So go ahead to Skillshare.com. If you use the link in my description, the first 1,000 people are gonna get a free premium trial. So what are you waiting for? You have no excuses at this point. Go ahead, check that out. One of the things that I've been encouraging other creatives is with this newfound downtime, investing it in yourself. Before you go buy that new lens, that new light, that new camera, look to invest in yourself and really further your journey from the inside out. So once again, the link is in the description. Check it out for yourself. And my thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. While the Fujifilm X-E4 brings a lot of value at its sub $1,000 price point, I still hope that a few things can be improved via software and eventually in future iterations. I noticed that when I was shooting waist level, the sensor for the viewfinder would trigger and black out the LCD in some instances. I tried to imagine a world where someone would want to use the viewfinder when the LCD is perpendicular to the camera, and I couldn't think of anything. So if you know, share it in the comments below if I'm missing something here. The good thing is this may be potentially solvable via firmware, so maybe they can fix this in the coming months. While the autofocus can be improved, I'd love to see another improvement, and that's object tracking in video. You see, object tracking in photo mode on Fujifilm cameras works incredibly well, and sometimes even better than face detection. I'm sure this is just easier said than done, but I'd love to see object tracking in video mode. It'd be a killer upgrade that's sure to please many users, not just of this camera, but across the Fujifilm lineup. Lastly, and this is not doable via firmware as far as I know, but for the next version of this camera, I'd love to see an upgrade to that viewfinder and the return of a focus mode switch on the front of the camera. Look, I get that these decisions were made and there had to be some trade-offs to hit this price point, but those two items would make this a substantially better user experience on the X-E4 that would incentivize people to shoot more. And there's no shame in bringing the switch back, Fujifilm. I promise you that. You know, I don't think people are gonna knock you for backtracking on this one. But hey, maybe that's just me. The Fujifilm X-E4 is a competitive product in a competitive field, even amongst its own family. You have the XS10, the X100V, the XT30, and even the XT3 that can all be considered alternatives in some circumstances. While all these cameras share the same sensor and processor, how you capture what you capture will ultimately dictate which camera is right for you. Now, I've made specific videos that go into more depth, comparing a few of these cameras with the X-E4, but to paraphrase them, the Fujifilm X-E4 is a great option if you're primarily focused on image capture and want to allocate your budget toward good glass. If you plan on doing a bit more video, the XT30 may be a worthwhile consideration, especially on the third-party market because of its better controls and handling. Now, if you need better handling and image stabilization, the XS10 really knocks it out of the park. Planning on doing more of a hybrid shooting experience? Well, the XT3, especially on the used market, might be the better recommendation. At the end of the day, really look at what you plan to shoot, how often, and where it'll happen, and you'll come to realize what may best suit your capturing style. What you just have to appreciate is that with this camera, you're getting the best guts that Fujifilm has to offer with respect to their sensor and processor at a very competitive price point, making this a great starting point for anyone that's prospecting the Fujifilm ecosystem.
Special and she reckless. Remember, you're my bestest friend. Yeah, she my bestie. My love for you is endless. Nobody else can end it. And when I get the money back, then baby girl, you can spend it.
With all that said, is this camera worth it? It can be. For users completely new to the space, there's so much value here. For users that already have a higher tier Fuji product, this could also be a more relaxed pairing that offers a more liberal shooting experience. And for the adventurers, the X-E4 paired with vintage glass could make for an amazing and explorative creator tool. In my time with this camera, I enjoyed what this brought to the table, and the results were amazing. Being able to focus even in the most challenging conditions and using Fujifilm's really differentiating film simulations, it's not an experience that you typically associate with cameras targeting beginners. Look at the Fujifilm X-T100, for example. But here we are. In short, the Fujifilm X-E4 is a worthwhile camera for those looking to create great images in the moment while providing a healthy ceiling for your skills to grow into. Whether or not this is the right camera for you will ultimately come down to truly understanding how you shoot and how robust your video needs are. And there you have it. That is my review of the Fujifilm X-E4. And if you're in the market for this camera, I hope you found some value with this video. More importantly, let me know what you think in the comments below. I read everything that you guys post down there, and I'd love to continue the conversation. As always, my name is Gajan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.